Today, we're going to be talking about the future of crowdsourcing platforms. And with me, I have Kyle Sutter, who's a consultant with Deloitte, and he's facilitating this phenomenal panel on crowdsourcing. Today's theme that we're going to be talking about is what is working and what is not working with crowd-based solutions. So, Kyle, please introduce yourself as well as the topic and some of your top experts that are participating.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Kyle Sutter. I'm a consultant with Deloitte's Pixel team, our internal crowdsourcing capability. So we have a super diverse panel made up of a variety of different experts with backgrounds ranging from chief innovation officer, crowdsource participant, some who are employed by a crowdsource vendor. We have retired executives and some academics as well who've studied crowdsourcing for upwards of 15 to 20 years. So a wide range of experts that are weighing in and providing some really interesting context, both to the questions we're posing and back and forth with each other. So to highlight some of the top experts, we have Ed Addison. Among other things, he's a CEO and founder, serial entrepreneur, and he specializes in the pharmaceutical space. Henry Nagan, who is more on the financial services side, has also provided a lot of insight. And the last expert to highlight on this one is Christine NG. She has several backgrounds, including an engineer, nutrition and health specialist, etc. She's provided some really great insight as well. We sort of bubbled the takeaways up into 4 key categories. So we wanted to dive deep into what's working and what's not working with crowdsourcing, specifically in terms of the models. As we know, there's hundreds of crowdsourcing platforms and dozens of different models, whether it be competition, collaborative, et cetera, freelance-based. And we wanted to understand what models are working best today. And then as new models develop, what additional capabilities could we see rising to the top in the next 1 to 2 years? So I'll first start with what is working. A few things that people pointed out. Obviously, the first is access to distributed talent. With crowdsourcing, you're able to reach technical talent as well as a vast number of talent very quickly. So that is working in present day crowdsourcing. The second, and that's this kind of a corollary to that, is mass ideation. So one of the models, as we'll talk about later, that's working is sort of aggregating consumer insights or consumer ideation via this crowdsourcing model. Third, cost efficiencies. That's a huge reason why a lot of people are beginning to experiment with crowdsourcing is the cost efficiencies found within the platforms. And then lastly, the ability to co-create products, ideas, methodology much faster than in-house or much less limited basis. So it's kind of what we found for what is working today. In terms of what isn't working, there definitely are some issues that were recurring from the experts in terms of what isn't working that's going to have to continue to evolve if crowdsourcing is going to continue to scale. The first is sort of this inconsistency among results from the crowd. Second is sort of low payouts for the crowd. So taking a reverse look rather than looking at the outputs that come from the crowd, looking at the practitioners in the crowd, there's really low payouts, and several times there's reference that it's becoming a race to the bottom. Third is sort of privacy concerns. It's really tough to understand ownership of ideas. It's a little more clear cut with digital products. If you've got a freelancer working on digital products, they complete it, sign it over to you, and you retain ownership. But in terms of ideation and insights, it's a little bit harder to identify ownership. And then the last thing an expert mentioned, was the commoditization of expertise. So expertise is something that's super valuable, but through crowdsourcing, it's becoming a little bit more commoditized. That's a potential area of concern. And overall, we're seeing these problems evolve and compound as platforms begin to scale. So that's really the biggest problem, is these experts are posing concerns that we expected crowdsourcing to sort of take a little bit stronger of a market hold, to be bigger at this point. in its evolution. But as the front runner platforms begin to evolve and really scale, these problems are compounding. The third bucket I mentioned at the beginning, what current models are driving the best results? So the first thing, which I kind of already mentioned, was the crowdsource ideation / consumer insights. That's a really, really, really interesting value proposition that crowdsourcing is providing that's pretty tough to get any other place. So that model is working right now. Second is hiring unique freelancers quickly at an affordable price. That sort of goes hand in hand with something I mentioned with the access to distributed talent earlier. But being able to access a wide variety of skills quickly and affordably is huge. And then lastly, creating communities of specialists to compete. So those are kind of the three current models that we're seeing that are really working. And then the last category to hit on, what new models could work in the future. So some things that experts mentioned, the first was more rapid prototyping. So crowdsourcing does enable a type of quick prototyping that an in-house developer might not provide. The expert who mentioned this was considering even faster prototyping, so less depth, more speed. So that will continue to evolve in the future. And then something that really caused a good discussion on the panel this week was this idea of hybrid models. So we know there's a few different types, as I mentioned earlier, few different types of crowdsourcing platforms, including competition-based, where the crowd participants compete against each other to win the prize. There's collaborative, where they work together, and then there's distributed, where they work sort of individually, which basically means that part of the campaign is a competition, where at the very beginning, industrial designers are competing against each other to bid for the work. But contrary to absolute competition platforms, where the entirety of the campaign is a competition, like Topcoder, the industrial designers put in less work up front during the competition phase, and then once 1 to 3 of them are selected, all 3 then are guaranteed pay and work more like a freelancer for the second half of the project. So it's kind of combining 2 different models. And what that does is it guarantees pay, it guarantees quality, it guarantees timing, and it guarantees consistency to the parties using the platform. And I think, as the experts noted as well, these hybrid models are going to become extremely important in helping to solve for some of the pain points that we mentioned earlier.